All right, so I guess first and foremost, welcome to Asymmetric Solutions. Some of you guys have been out before, some of you have not. Give you a quick overview of the place. Asymmetric Solutions, obviously, it's a full-scale government defense contracting company that primarily focuses on training. We also have logistical support, research and development sectors, as well as security, law enforcement training, and a civilian sector as well for home defense, self-defense, personal defense type stuff. To kick things off, I'll give you guys a quick overview of what you're looking at here. This is our Missouri location, one of 3 locations that we have nationwide. We also have Florida and New Mexico. This is our homestead and original training spot, which is why it's the most robust and the biggest. You're sitting on 1,280 acres of training ground here. Starting from right to left, if you guys look far to your right here, we got 9 small arm ranges that span across here. The ridge line there that runs across the top, if you look all the way up into the skyline, as far as you can see, that is all asymmetric training grounds. That's all part of the property here. Right there in the center, you can see that's actually a historic landmark for Missouri as a whole called Bald Knob. You see the flag flying up there. That's actually a memorial that has been put up there by the team here at Asymmetric. That's got the list of all the fallen comrades and teammates of guys that were killed in the various wars and conflicts that work here at Asymmetric. Once a year, we hike up there, change out the flag, update the plaque with any newcomers that came on here that have friends that have been lost, and then pay our respects and come back down. So that's an annual thing for us. But if you follow that ridge line all the way around, that's all AS. It continues on the other side of the road, which you guys will get a chance to see here in a little bit. And that's the property line. Looking at it from right to left, down at the bottom, like I said, 9 small arm ranges. First range is down here on the far side. You got a pistol range. The distance on that's right at 75 meters. You push it back, tree line. Next step over, what you're looking at in all those Connex boxes or those big steel boxes, that's explosive storage area. Just down from that is our breaching facade area, which is where our explosive breaching, ballistic breaching, and mechanical breaching all takes place. Directly to the left of that, 13,000 square foot multi-level shoot house, obviously uncovered, open outdoors. That's where you do all your direct action training, specifically to house takedowns. Stepping over to the left there, mobility obstacle course. That is engineered to accommodate the majority of anything that you would run into in an off-road, austere environment. So we got sand pit. That sand pit looks kind of small, but that thing's actually 5.5 foot deep with nothing but sand, so you can bury a vehicle completely in that thing.
Come on. That's cool.
Yeah, so very deep. We got a fording pit down there, high angle ascent, descent, rock garden, curb climbs, concrete crossings, culvert crossings, intro to high-speed rally, which is the circular little small track that runs around it. That is the entry-level high-speed rally stuff that they'll learn how to kind of run the vehicles at somewhat speed before they push up to our annex down in Malden that actually has our 2.5 mile long high-speed rally course that was actually a golf course that was turned into a high-speed rally track.
When you say high-speed rally, what is the...
Off-road driving at high speed.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's what these guys do is when they come in, the majority of special operations teams use what's called non-standard vehicles. They call them NSTVs. For us, it's just a 4Runner or Hilux. They call them NSTVs because usually military guys are using military vehicles, but if they're not using a military vehicle, they call them a non-standard vehicle. So they come here. A Hilux is the most commonly utilized platform in the majority of areas that we operate overseas. So a Hilux is basically an overseas version of the 4Runners. So if you look in the back, we have a whole fleet of 4Runners back there to accommodate the training.
Why the 4Runner, out of curiosity?
Because of its likeliness to the Hilux.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it literally is almost a cookie cutter version exactly of what the Hilux is overseas. So in all of your Middle Eastern countries, a lot of your Asian countries, everything, Hiluxes are what's dominantly utilized by the local population. So when a SOF team, a special operations team, comes into country, they have to usually locally procure vehicles to blend in with the rest of the population. Those vehicles are 4-wheel drive, they're capable, they have cargo capacity, and their overall reliability as a whole is higher than the majority of other platforms.
So that's an identifying factor.
Absolutely is.
As a civilian.
100%, yeah, 100%. So that's why we utilize those platforms here. We do it for both the off-road and the on-road driving. A lot of places, that's one of the big distinguishing differences in our mobility course. A lot of the places you go to that do the high-speed evasive driving on the asphalt, they'll switch you over to a sedan-style vehicle, like an old cop car, Crown Vic, something like that. Usually for safety purposes because it's a low-profile, equally center of gravity vehicle that easily can slide and ram and all that stuff without crashing. But it's not realistic. Nobody's driving a Crown Vic overseas. So they learn on those things, but then you leave and then you jump in a 4Runner and you try to do the same thing on asphalt with a 4Runner and you end up barrel rolling the thing down the asphalt, right? So we don't use Crown Vics or any of the low-profile vehicles. We utilize the platforms that are actually being used even in our high-speed training as well, which is something that's pretty unique to the company that other companies just don't do, because there is a higher liability in it. But we've went ahead and installed roll cages and safety parameters and all of it to help accommodate that. It's a bigger expense, but again, it lends to the better training for the teams going down range. Once they finish the off-road obstacle course and they get to where they're going to the practical application portion of it, if you see that other big steel hanging sign down there, it says off-road proving grounds. We actually have approximately 60 plus miles of intertwining trail systems that intertwine throughout this entire property. So this place has got trails all over the place. So they learn how to utilize the vehicle properly and negotiate the obstacles to the best of their ability on the engineered course. And then we take them out into the platform for a couple of days, or into the proving grounds for a couple of days, where they will encounter all of those things in the natural setting and have to continue on. So they'll do a couple of days of trail systems, and they'll end up eventually going into full mission profiles where they actually have objectives where they have to navigate through, encounter enemy forces, evade, all that good stuff in the system itself. So that is one of our actual hallmarks of the Missouri location, because the robustness of our mobility capability here. You guys are looking at the off-road portion, but again, the annex I mentioned down there at Malden, it not only has the 2.5 miles of high-speed off-road rally, but it also has a 3.5 mile hardball high-speed rally track asphalt, as well as skid pad for ramming vehicles and doing spins and turns and all that good stuff. All the fun stuff you see on TV. The guys, it looks fun, it is fun, but it's a necessary skill set for these guys to have, especially when you're talking about low profile missions, special activity missions, where your guys are either 1 up or 2 up, or utilize super small teams where their evasion capability is literally their only survivability. I mean, if you get compromised with 2-3 guys in a vehicle by a force, your chances of survivability are pretty slim, especially in a non-standard vehicle that has no up armor or anything on it. In addition to the training for the actual driving the vehicles, we complement it with what's called vehicle defense. So in the event that they are compromised, they get wrecked, and they have to get in a gunfight from the vehicle or after a wreck, we take them to a rollover trainer, simulate rollovers, put them in a wreck, and then they have to fight their way out of the vehicle. They learn all the ballistic points, the protective points on a vehicle. We know what the ballistic effects are of shooting in a windshield, shooting out of a windshield, the actual bullet stopping areas of a vehicle that they can utilize some sort of cover. What most people don't realize is that it's nothing like the movies. A non-standard vehicle, a non-up armored vehicle, is literally a Swiss cheese factory. I mean, it takes approximately 3 to 5 seconds to kill an entire vehicle full of people in no time. 2 guys that know how to ambush a vehicle will kill everybody in there in 3 to 5 seconds. You won't even get the doors open, and everybody will kill you. So one of the big things I guess is gas before lead. Gas before lead, like try to run until that vehicle can't run anymore. And then again, the rollover trainer is in the event that you ran and then got rolled, and now you're trying to fight your way out of it. So it depends on the size of the class. On average, when a soft team comes out, you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15 guys. So the cadre is usually a 1-to-3 ratio on a mobility package. So because there's 4 seats in the Forerunner, you got 1 instructor and 3 students in the vehicle with you all the time. So 1-to-3 ratio. So you're looking at, depending on the size of the class, that's the ratio that we have. So
What's the typical training time for these classes?
1 week for a standard mobility course.
And there's obviously some prerequisites prior to coming here. You have to have are they loaded with some training, or is this completely from scratch?
It's a from scratch program. Some of the guys come in having previous mobility training. We also have an advanced mobility course. It's another week long that is specifically for students that have a baseline established, so you can bypass some of the baseline stuff, the basic mechanics, the basic recovery techniques and stuff that they should have learned in a basic package. Yeah. But that's a separate course that gets ran. But yeah, it's a 1-to-3 student ratio on average. And the instructor cadre requirement is based on that. So, yeah, it's really, like I said, it's fun stuff. Everybody enjoys doing it, but people don't realize the importance of that particular skill set, especially for special operations, because these guys are not running around in an infantry squad or a platoon or company where they got massive amounts of support. It's 1 or 2 dudes on their own with a minimal loadout, and literally they have just enough to break off the X and hopefully survive that initial contact, and then it's just trying to get away until they can get initial support to come in and help them, or have to run initially or forever. So it's not just the soft teams we train on this. Again, we have 3-letter agency types that come out and learn the same stuff, and then it's actually super important for law enforcement to learn specifically the vehicle defense portions of things, because cops live in cars. So one of the #1 recommended courses that we tell law enforcement about is vehicle defense, because they drive around that tin can all day long, and 90% of police vehicles out there have no level of up armor on them whatsoever. They have a handful of things. You got your SWAT Bearcats and stuff like that, but outside of that, they run around patrol cars. And if the majority of the population realize how easy it is to kill everybody inside a vehicle, cops would be a lot more uncomfortable with what they do every single day.
No shit.
So we expose them to the realities of that on vehicle defense, and then teach them the tactics and techniques that will, again, baseline of the whole premise of the company is to increase lethality and survivability. So both of those things are accomplished through learning how to fight in and around the vehicle, as well as try to increase your survivability by knowing the reality of what you're sitting in. Just to finalize here, giving you a quick overview of what we got sitting here on this particular facility. Stepping away from the mobility stuff, you can see right there, that's a 3-story rappel tower. That's where you do all your fast roping and your rappelling. There's 6 different rappel points off that, low level and high level, as well as a hell hole in the center for doing fast rope operations, which simulates coming out of the helicopter or either side, whether it's a rappel or a fast rope. That's all that's there for. As you push down past, those are just cookie cutter ranges, just like I was talking about down here, just small arms ranges, caliber restrictions, up to a 308. But all of these ranges are dynamic, so there's no movement restrictions. There's nothing that's keeping the guys from running and gunning at whatever level that they need to operate at. That's one of the big reasons why facilities like this exist, is because in a standard DoD base, like Camp Pendleton, Camp Lejeune, places like that everybody knows about, those bases are designed with safety parameters put in place for the lowest common denominator. So for the 18-year-old kid that's an admin clerk that's not a fighter but still has to go to the range and shoot, they want to make sure he doesn't shoot somebody or himself while out there on the range. So the safety parameters are so strict and are forced to be adhered to that you, as a soft team, as a kinetic team that has to be agile, quick, and dynamic, they just can't push themselves to limits that they need to push themselves to limits to on ranges like that.
When you say soft team, definition?
SEAL team, Raider team, pararescue team, Ranger team, any of your Special Operations Forces teams.
What does SOF stand for? Is that
Special Operations Forces? Okay. Yeah. Sorry for the acronyms. Yeah.
So no, I gotta get. I mean, acronyms.
No, I'm glad that you're asking
Yeah.
that. Because
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So the dynamics. So this is, safety is always paramount in everything that you do, but you have to allow an individual to push themselves to their absolute limits in order to get them to the highest level. So if you're a tier 1, tier 2 operator, again, tier 1 being SEAL Team 6, Delta Force, tier 2 being your regular SEALs, Rangers, Raiders, pararescue, all the ones I just got done rattling off. Those guys are screened and selected to be independent operators as well as team guys, but they have to independently be able to push themselves to a level to where they're expected to be able to handle themselves as an individual, even against an overwhelming force. So you can't do that and train to that level if you're being restricted to standard parameters that are put in place in DoD establishments. So that's one of the big things why offsite training like this exists, is to allow that to occur. Again, safety still being paramount, but because of the cadre being here, all prior being special operations, they know exactly how to set the ranges up and know exactly how to put the safety parameters in place to allow that level of training without restricting the capabilities or restricting the guys from pushing themselves to the limits in which they need to be pushed. Plus, the experience of the guys here allows them to stop an operator when they get to a point to where, okay, it's time to slow you down a bit because you're starting to get unsafe, right? And if you're doing that stuff on a standard base, you're not getting that level of instruction. You're not getting that level of freedom of movement. We have, our client base now at this point, we've trained every soft force that exists. We've had SEALs, we've had Rangers, we've had Raiders, we've had Force Recon, we've had pararescue, we've had CCT, we've had all of them across the spectrum. So the company's still fairly young. This is our 7th year of doing actual Department of Defense contracts. I'm talking specifically.
7th year doing DoD?
Doing DoD. Okay. 7th year doing DoD. The company's right at, so the company's about 12 years old from an actual, let's start a company. 9 years of actually really operating, a little over 9 years of actual operating. Started out with the civilian stuff alone, trying to bootstrap this thing. Got a civilian base in here to get a revenue stream going, climbed it into the law enforcement sector, and then dabbled in the security side. And then once we had enough of a baseline to support low-level training for the military, we were able to penetrate into the military side of the house, SOCOM specifically, Special Operations Command, and start getting guys in here to do training. And since then, it's just been year after year. We invest what we can into it to make it grow, make it better. And now our primary clientele and our primary customer base is Special Operations Command across.
How long have you been doing tier 1 training?
So tier 1, tier 2, 7 years.
7 years? You got DoD contracts after 5 years?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yep. Yeah. So it's been, the first, on the business side of the house, the first 5 years of doing work with the Department of Defense is really, really difficult. It's no different than any other small business that you hear about. Everybody's heard that 80% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years. The same statistics apply for DoD contracting companies like this. And if you can survive that first 5 years, That's whenever the Department of Defense and the entities as a whole, even your federal side on the law enforcement, start to look at you as like a real player in the game, because they're like, all right, these guys actually have something, they survived. And now they start to trust you a little more with giving you larger scale training contracts, bigger responsibilities, larger sums of money to help support what the agendas are. Because until you're established, it's a risk. If they award you a big training contract, for example, at this point we're doing company size evolutions. So a company size evolution is up to 125 personnel here. There's 4 SOF teams, a headquarters element, and everybody doing operations across the nation simultaneously, simulating a deployment overseas. So which is why we have the 3 locations nationwide, is so we can support simulated deployments here in America, similar to what they're doing overseas prior to them deploying. So that was the whole goal of Asymmetric, was to get us to a point where we could be a 90% one-stop shop to simplify the contracting process for the DoD and for the units, because those large-scale exercises, like I just mentioned to you guys, on average, those things will have anywhere from 15 to 25 various contracting companies supporting them to make it happen. So you got guys that are supporting the mobility stuff. You got a different company supporting the special activity stuff. You got a different company supporting the off-site target stuff. You got a different company supporting the aerial asset stuff, all this stuff.
And moving those operators to all the different spots.
All the spots, yeah. But from a contracting standpoint, it makes it difficult. And from a team level, it makes it difficult, because I might be dealing with you today, but then I got a completely different guy I'm dealing with tomorrow because I'm doing something different. So if you could make something that has a single point of contact and a one-stop shop, that would make life easier, and you would maximize training time and minimize administrative and logistical support time.
And then they got to send 1 check.
And you only got to sign 1 check.
Yeah.
So from the admin side, the support side, they're happy. From the operator side, they're happy, because it simplifies things across the board and allows them to maximize the time to, again, increase their efficiency and, like I said earlier, the lethality and survivability before going down range. It took us 5 years of trying to get in, and basically the first 5 years is really the test drive. Like you're just hustling, trying to tell guys, like, spread the word, like, we're out here, this is what we can do, this is what we can support, and get people to basically invest in you and say, these guys are legit, they have legit facilities, they have legit up-to-date tactics, they have all the things that we need that directly is going to contribute to our skill sets and their necessary needs for going down range. And that whole 5-year span is your test drive. So you're building what's called past performance. And once your past performance is established, these are all documented. So we get after-action reports from every student that comes through here. The headquarters elements submit after-action reports to get it uploaded into a system. It's called CPARS, which is a grading system on a contractor's company. And then as that CPARS increase and approval ratings, your credibility increases in approval ratings. And then so whenever you go after, for example, say if 10 Special Forces Group has a huge training contract that they put out to bid to a bunch of companies like ours, they're going to look at the past performance of all the companies they're trying to support that exercise. And if you have a good reputation, there's a high probability you're going to make it into the final tranche of looks. And if you have a really good reputation, there's a high probability that you could be the one that gets selected. And so then that's how you start compounding and getting. It was important to try to not only increase the efficiencies on the training side, but increase the efficiency for the contracting side, because the check writers and the people that approve the contracts are like, wow, I can write 1 check and then get all these things done at one location versus having to write 25 checks to 25 different contractors to accomplish the exact same thing, which was the goal of Asymmetric the whole time, is get to a point where we could be, again, a one-stop shop. So connections, well, it does help with the initial entry into this world, is having the contacts and the reputation. Reputation is everything in special operations. You'll hear reputation is everything in the world in general.
Until you make your own.
But it's right. But it's really, really important stuff. I mean, there's, one of the famous saying, 10 years to build a reputation, 10 minutes to ruin it. That's the reality of life in general, but it's very specifically relevant to special operations in particular, because I don't care what you did yesterday, it's what can you do today? So every day is a tryout. You're dealing with the highest caliber of individuals that you can deal with on the fighting side of the house, as far as the military goes. So if you miss a step, or you gaff off a minor detail that directly affects what it is they're trying to accomplish, the guys are ruthless. I mean, we all come from that world. All of us came from that world. And we all know how we were. We know how they are, and there's no forgiveness for it. You can't show an ounce of weakness ever. And if you get to a point to where you're phasing out, like, you're better off to kind of take a step back and let the next alpha dog step in, because the minute you show weakness, it'll be pounced upon. That's just the reality. But it keeps you young, keeps you alive, and it's the world all of us enjoy being in. And everybody's got the mentality you'd rather wear out the rust out. So, I mean, they're going to run hard until they can't run hard anymore. That's just the reality of
What
it.
a fucking amazing. So you think you're tough?
Awesome.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
No shit.
Good Lord.
Talk about how tough you are.
I'm not
Oh,
tough. These guys are tough. No, I heard the
Fuck
only
no.
thing I heard was run. First thing, run it first.
You listen to this.
That's my
you
Scottish way too. Just run.
The
Run
scope
for the
of what
hills.
you're teaching here
Yeah.
is freaking incredible.
Yeah, it's a full spectrum. It's a full spectrum capability that we maintain. You know, like I said, there's a handful of things that we don't. You know, SIGINT, which is it's sensitive stuff to talk about there, but SIGINT is one that we don't do, which is signal intelligence. That's a lot of your classified bugs and devices.
That's what I was asking about the
Yeah,
tech
so
end of it.
we help support that stuff, but we don't directly maintain that capability internal to the
Why
company.
would you
So
want to? It's
you
an
don't.
ever-changing
God.
industry.
and that's why those companies only focus on those things, is because it is a full-time job just staying up to that pace. And it's just something that unless you're a Kaki or a Metis or a Costellus that has the money to maintain a guy doing nothing for a while, waiting for a contract to come in, like, you just don't do that. So we can't. We don't maintain that this time. Maybe someday. Right now we don't.
So do you do civilian training also?
We do civilian training. Yep. And we started as a civilian training company again because we're trying to bootstrap this thing from the beginning. We didn't have investors. Everything was let's try to build this thing from the ground up. Obviously, at the level we are now, it wasn't feasible to get to this point without having investors come in and step in. But the civilians have always been a part of Asymmetric. We've been asked numerous times. We can't believe you guys do all the stuff you do with all the high level, fighters out there, and then you still teach civilians. But at the end of the day, if you're a God-fearing, Second Amendment supporting American, we feel like it's our contribution back to society to help train those individuals that have that mindset to the best of their ability. Because the more people we have on the front, in the event that the worst case scenario occurs, as everybody knows, I mean, everything in our training realm is trained to the worst case scenario. Because if you prepare for the worst case scenario, the rest is easy. So,
Do you have age restrictions on your civilian end?
15. Yeah. And 15 has to be accompanied by a parent,
Okay.
but we'll allow 15 and up to come in as long as they have a parent accompanied with them.
What age are you going to go up to?
There is no restriction. So long as they're still capable of safely manipulating a weapon system, then we'll allow them to train.
What would be a boot camp?
Yeah, so it takes several training iterations. Our civilian sector is what's called now the AMG, the Asymmetric Members Group. And there's an application, a screening process for guys to even come out here and train. And we do our best to assure that, again, basically the screening process that we put in place is almost exactly that of which any federal entity, military unit, or anybody, the administrative screening process that they go through in order to go to the units that they go to. So they'll do a multi-phase background check, they'll do a social media scrub and screening, they'll do an in-person video, an in-person or a VTC interview process with the cadre that works here, as well as some of the existing AMG members, to assure that personalities jive and that there isn't something that's potentially slipped through the cracks of the background of screening checks. And then there's also a 90-day probation period once they get here. Additionally, once they get selected and brought in, there's additional skill sets. So there's initial skill sets that have to be acquired and tested and passed within that 90-day period for them to maintain their role as an AMG member here. So your basic safety rules have to be memorized. Your basic weapons conditions have to be memorized. Your basic manipulations have to be physically tested and passed out on. So
Manipulations
meaning the way you handle the pistol, the way you draw, shoot, fire, move back, load, reload, all the basic handling procedures of a weapon system, and on both a pistol and a carbine. Carbine being your shouldered fire rifle, semi-automatic rifle. And pistol being, no matter what it is, just a pistol sidearm. But you have to understand the basic fundamentals of those. You have to pass the basic fundamentals of those. You have to memorize safety rules, memorize the safety briefs, everything within 90 days, and then test out and pass those in order to even maintain membership here. Situational awareness and de-escalation training is actually one of the mandatory.
That's the words.
Is one of the mandatory classes they have to take when they first come into the AMG. That's the very first thing they're taught is situational awareness and de-escalation. Because again, you should not, as a civilian, be implementing your weapon system unless you absolutely have no other option. That's it. So you have to understand, one, how to avoid those situations, i.e. situational awareness. De-escalate situations if you do end up in a conflict, because just because a guy wants to fist fight, don't mean you need to shoot him in the face, right? You have to learn how to de-escalate.
Awesome.
So the initial classroom time there's a 1 day classroom portion of teaching everything, and then there's a scenario-based day to where they actually go through the scenarios, and then there's pass-fail criteria on those. And then once they pass that pass-fail criteria on the scenarios, it shows that they've got a basic understanding, and then they have to revisit that over and over and over again. But it's not like a multi-week Yeah, so everything's phased. Everything's phased. So there's entry level training, familiarization, which is what we're talking about, and then it steps up level 1, level 2, level 3, all of which have test out criteria for you to be able to move up to the next level in the more advanced training.
Time commitment.
So it's time commitment. Each class is a day long, and then the test out's at the end of the day. If you don't pass the test, you have to retake the class until you can pass the test. So some guys do it in their first time around because they have a history or a past, involvement in something similar to what we have going on here, whether they were a security guard or they grew up shooting or they did whatever, or they were a fighter or whatever the case may be. But they have to pass the test criteria in order to move on to the next level. So the golden standard is 10,000 repetitions, which some of you guys have probably heard.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
that is the golden standard, 10,000 repetitions. Some take less, some take more. It all depends, but that's the average across the board. And like you said, in part of the training with the AMG and the reason for the scenarios is stress inoculation training is what that is. So I'm simulating to the best of my ability the realism of that event in that scenario. So we're utilizing what's called simunitions, which is gunpowder charged paint rounds coming out of a platform that looks just like a real gun. It is a real gun, but it's shooting paint instead of bullets. And the physical interaction, the verbal interactions are very, very unrestricted to a certain level that they don't go to a point where it's actually going to hurt you, but you are going to feel what is happening throughout the scenarios. So if like I think right now the statistic out there is like less than 80% of males under the age of 25 in the United States have ever actually been in a physical altercation. Like you don't know how you're going to be until you know how you're going to be. If you train on your own, so your time here is restricted by the amount of classes that are available to the AMG memberships. The AMG trains out here.
There we go. That's what I'm asking.
The AMG trains out here every other weekend. So there's opportunities for an AMG member to train out here twice a month, and then there's open range days that they can come out here and they can train on their own with the supervision of an instructor. Once you have the understanding of the skill set and you've retained the information, whether it's notebook or it's in your head at this point, you can continue to practice these things in your living room for the most part. You're not shooting, you're not live firing anything, but any of the other stuff you can continue to implement and train no shit every day. When it comes to situational awareness in general, which is really the biggest thing for civilians, is just situational awareness, period. Being aware of your surroundings and not keeping your face in your phone and not understanding what's going on and around you is the biggest thing. And you can practice that. Once you get the exposure to the realities of the nasty things that are in the real world that most people don't really realize are out there, or kind of neglect to acknowledge are out there, and you start to pay attention to those little things, you can practice that driving to the damn gas station. You can practice it walking. You can do it walking to the grocery store. So I mean, you can practice those things nonstop, and you'll see the guys that actually do implement on their own time, trying to change the way that they carry themselves, the way that they pay attention to things.
Looking at your exits, looking at
all those types of things. When they come back and they re-engage in a class, it shows in the scenario-based training. Like, so you have a booklet as an AMG member that has every time you do a class, that class is stamped in there that shows that you completed that class, and then you can just keep getting stamps, keep getting going. So like we can pick any AMG member and go, well, man, you just crushed it today. Like you nailed every scenario. So if I see if we got a class that comes in, or say we set up an advanced class, because some of the advanced stuff we can't logistically, and this is stepping on the business side of the house, like I can't afford to be paying an instructor and then locking down a range for one guy who has a higher level of ability than. So we have to wait until, because the AMG membership's capped as well. So we only allow 150 members to be in the AMG, and there's a wait list for people as AMG members depart. Because there's no contract, there's nothing. Like we treat this thing just like a soft team. Like you try out to be here, but then if you get to the point where you don't want to be here, we'll fucking leave. Like leave.
Doesn't mean you get.
If you don't want to be here, don't be here. Plus you can be peered out. Like if your peers say, man, this guy's a shithead, and like by your peers,
Gotcha.
by your peers, as well as for potentially life-threatening or limb-threatening safety incidents.
Being stupid.
Yeah. So even if a guy's been here for a while and he was negligible with his firearm and has what's called an ND, a negligible discharge, and then accidentally cooks a round off in the wrong direction or shoots on the ground or something, that'll be investigated thoroughly to see what happened, to make sure it wasn't a mechanical malfunction. And if it's determined that it was gross negligence on the shooter's part, when he is well trained beyond doing something like that, then the board decides whether or not that person is removed from the AMG, because now he becomes a liability to not only the rest of the AMG members, but to the company as a whole, because we don't need people, shooting themselves out here. So we don't teach anything offensive to civilians.
No, I'm not in.
But from as far as a defensive standpoint, there is no cap.
Perfect.
I mean, and there's no such thing as perfection. So even once you've had the full spectrum of training, you can revisit all of those over and over and over again. And unless you've done this for 20 years, 30 years, like you've lived that life, you're not going to be proficient in it as what you can be. And you're never going to reach a maximum level of proficiency. There's no such thing as perfection. So you have to continue to revisit the basics. And I mean, one of the biggest things that guys, I mean, everybody thinks Delta Force SEAL Team 6, right? What those guys are is really, really good at the fundamentals. They never mess up the basics. And that's why they're so fast, they're so quick, and they're so efficient. It's not because they know how to do barrel rolls and jump over cars and do all the shit you see in Hollywood. That shit's not real. On the military side of the house, it's all the way from start to finish. So let's go. So on the backside of any engagement on the military side of the house, you got battle damage assessments, and you got SSE procedures, which is your search and segregate and investigation stuff. So it's full spectrum. It's full spectrum training across the board. So it's not just the kinetic side of the house. It's pre-kinetics, it's kinetics, and it's post-kinetics across the board. It's full spectrum. Yeah. So in here is where when a team comes in, this is called a tactical operations center, which is why you got all the TVs centered up. So when a team comes in and they're operating here, doing any type of training, especially some sort of exercise support, which is, I was giving you an example of a large scale exercise earlier from a company standpoint. Their headquarters element will set up in here, hook all their computers up, get their map data up, get their headquarters lines on, get their team lines on. They'll run satellites out here in the back, and they'll be communicating with their teams that are out doing the training, whether they're here on site or at their various locations across the nation, as well as they're communicating all the way back to the bases, their command posts at Camp Pendleton, Camp Lejeune, wherever the hell they may be. And they're updating them. They're updating them throughout the day of what the teams are doing and how they're doing it. This is one of the smaller classrooms. This is was the original kitchen. Now it's just utilized as a small team kitchen. So again, teams come in, they want to go out in town, buy a bunch of food, whatever. They can make this their own little kitchen the whole time they're here. Nothing special, just classroom, kitchen, and overflow. Bathrooms, there's actually 28 bathrooms and showers in this building. This location can actually house and accommodate up to 125 personnel for duration. And again, it's a complete self-sustainment site. So they can sleep here, they can eat here, they can train here, everything. They never have to leave the site whatsoever. So unless they choose to, if the command decides to give them time off, they can go out in town. But there's no need for them to go out in town. Everything is here on site, as well as recreational stuff. So
125 you could put in here?
Up to 125. So if there's a training iteration going on, every single night there's a debrief and a revamp for them all to adjust and modify as needed for the training. All depends on what's training. I mean, sometimes debriefs at the end of the day. Question was, how often do we debrief internally and talks during a training iteration? It's nightly. So at the end of the day, everybody comes together, talks about the day, what happened, the good, the bad, the ugly, makes any modifications or necessary changes to the training schedule for the follow-on day based off what happened during that day. If it's a small team, those debriefs can last 30, 45 minutes. If it's large scale exercise that had 17 moving parts all happening and nobody was together until the end of the day, sometimes those things are a couple hours, few hours of talking through what happened.
Self-critical too, or just teach your own?
Oh man, we're all our biggest critics. That's the roughest. And it's kind of like we joke all the time because everybody sees on TV, the clips of the Bin Laden raids and the Hussein captures and all the cool stuff you see on TV. And we joke like if you guys could hear the internal communications of that, like from an outside perspective, like, man, those guys crushed it. That was awesome. You guys did great. But inside in those comms, guys are going, you stupid motherfucker, what are you doing? Right. You were supposed to hit the other door. And you just adjust on the fly. The military has high-end skill set training capabilities, but then to give a guy a baseline, and then they come out to places, and then we also have, like, for example, the subterranean warfare is another training capability we have here. It's one of the largest scale subterranean warfare training capabilities in the nation. We have approximately 40 miles of underground.
In this property?
No. So Rala is another annex that we operate with, as well as we have deconflicted with several of the decommissioned mine sites for. Means we don't own the sites, but we've created partnerships and alliances with those locations to allow us to utilize those cave networks and those old mines. Initial acquisition of a skill set is anything that's stamped in a guy's training record has to be done by the military. So like to become a sniper, you go to a military sniper school. Now we have a sniper course here, and they will get a certification as being a certified asymmetric sniper, but that doesn't mean anything to the military because it wasn't a military course. So snipers, already existing snipers, will come out to a training course like this and just add it to their portfolio of sniper training locations. Right. So that's what this is. It's a honing and a refinement of already acquired skill sets. And then in some cases, specific to subterranean warfare, it's an initial acquisition of a skill set, or in the mobility stuff. high-speed evasive driving, technical off-road driving. Those are initial skill sets that are provided here that the military doesn't offer.
No shit.
All that stuff
So
is
subterranean is not an initial skill set taught in DoD. That's something.
It's not something
primary here.
they can come here. Correct. There's other companies that support that as well. And then your tier 1 units. Your tier 1 units are the primary forces utilized for subterranean warfare, but tier 2 being your standard SEALs and your standard Raiders, again, not your Delta Force SEAL Team 6 types. It has branched down to them at this point. So there's actually been an influx of subterranean training that has bled down to them just because of the overwhelming amount of underground stuff that is being encountered in the areas of conflict right now.
Right.
Yeah, so this is our
nice.
on-site armory. Usually, these are the guns that have been laid out for you guys' fun shoot today. So they're usually not just piled up laying on the table here. These are just sitting here because you guys are going to be shooting these up. These are all house guns. 99% of clientele brings their own weapon systems. These are here as backup guns as well as staff weapon systems. So in the event that a law enforcement officer or a military guy, a soft guy here is training and his weapon system goes down, it has to be worked on. We have an on-site armorer that can work on his stuff, but in the interim, we can provide him with a weapon system to continue to train, so it's not taking them out of the mix for any amount of time. The optics and stuff that are utilized, the platforms that you see here, are very similar to those, if not exactly replicas of those that are being utilized by those forces. So again, we're training guys using these. Obviously, that's what we train on, and then we try to be able to supplement them with what's needed as needed. Yep. So blue are your simunitions that I was mentioning earlier. Okay. So those are those are your paint rounds. So those are actual weapons that all you have to do is take the upper and change it out to one that's not blue, and you can fire real rounds. But those, for safety purposes, are painted blue. So there's a clear indicator that I'm not being shot with by a real weapon. Right. All right, this in here, this is pretty much everybody's favorite room. So gym, nothing special. It's, pretty austere here. Tough guy gym, but this is where guys better their body to better the country. Stay on top. So again, back to not having to leave the site for anything. Physical fitness is obviously a huge part of anybody that's in the gunfighting world. So obviously we wanted to supplement the place with sufficient equipment and training opportunities to where even while they're here training, they don't have to let their training regiments fall to the wayside.
Did you injure yourself? Oh yeah. Should have trained first. It's a little cold. My hands are cold. Baby.
What are the transmissions for?
So that's part of the mobility package. Part of your baseline off-road or evasive driving package. Day one of the classroom is basic vehicle familiarization. So one of the easiest ways to get a guy to comprehend how easily he can brake or how hard he can push a vehicle is making him understand the mechanics of the vehicle. So those facades are built out. They're opened up engines and opened up transmissions so they can actually see the internal components. So they're explained how exactly an automatic transmission works. They're explained how a motor works, and they're explained what RPMs does to it. They're explained what happens with high RPMs during shift sequences and blah, blah. So once a guy can mentally envision what is happening inside that engine or inside that drivetrain, then while he's driving it, he can think like, I'm probably gonna break this thing soon. And it helps control the driver as a whole. So day one is learning the basic mechanics of a vehicle and understanding what's actually happening underneath your ass in that seat. So whenever you're pushing it, hammering it, cramming gears, slamming gears, wrapping RPMs up to 5,000, whatnot, the guy can envision in his brain what is happening underneath him and what's probably going to happen when it explodes underneath him or blows his engine or something like that.
Gas, less lead.
Yeah.
So what schools are teaching that?
So that particular piece of it is not very commonly taught. That's one of our specialties that we've kind of incorporated into it. I was a mobility guy. We got some pretty heavy hitter mobility guys here that collectively put together our course. And, I'm biased obviously because it's our course, but I do strongly believe that we have the best mobility course that's out there because of the implementation of those particular things. In addition to that, we do what's called unconventional engineering, to where they're learning not only the basic mechanics of how to fix basic stuff on a vehicle in the event that they break something while driving, but they're learning how to do it with no tools at all. So they're taught things that they can take off the vehicle, off certain things to fix other things in order to keep them moving. They're taught things that they can procure locally, meaning if I'm running the vehicle brakes and if there's a gas station with X, Y, and Z in it, I can run in there, snag something real quick, fix it, get myself back on the road. They're learning all these different things. Where they can cut certain wires off certain electronics to rewire other things that makes the motor run and sacrifice some of the luxuries. So they're taught all that stuff during the unconventional engineering portion of it.
It's called the MacGyver.
Exactly. Unconventional engineering is a high-speed word for MacGyver stuff. Yeah, exactly. You know, they blow a radiator. They're taught how to fix a radiator with no type of stop leak. There's various things you can do for that. Yeah, they're taught how to take, you know, wires and utilize
And a piece of gum.
Utilize the battery to do makeshift welding for low-level welding for connecting metal, for just using the battery as an energy source in order to weld small stuff together and get it to hold. Yeah. So it's like I said, those are some of the additions that we've added into the mobility course that make it ours, really, make it unique. Moving into the kitchen. This is indoor dining here. So indoor dining here, and then right here's the kitchen. Working relationships with 80% of the restaurants and the food establishments in town, to where we'll contract them out for the duration of a train to come out here for the various meals, and they'll set up in here. And then the guys come here with a cattle line and just get their stuff, come back out, get their stuff, come back out. So this here's our building area. There's 2 of these cookie cutters, so there's no sense in me walking you over the other one. It's literally the exact same thing right next door. But as you can see, these are double up bunks, and it's like, I forget who was asking me earlier about, you know, whose design idea was all this. Everybody contributed to the design of this place that's here. But one of the unique things in these buildings is that it's really small and it's not a big deal to a lot of people. But if you look on the back wall, there's actually plug-ins at the second level of the bunk on the up high.
Wow, that's smart.
You know why that's up there? Because all of us have lived where you're in a bunk setup and the guy on the bottom's the only one with a fucking phone charger.
Yeah.
So we actually had the electricians installing these, you know, second level plug-ins. So to, again, help with the comfort and just the ease of use being out here. And then these are all private bathrooms and showers. This is actually all storage. So these are extra pillows, extra linens, and all that good stuff. These are actually decent. We got a really good deal. I had a buddy of mine that's was in the C-suite over at Wayfair. And these are actually Tempur-Pedic mattresses. They're pretty nice. Pretty nice little mattress. So it ain't that boot camp shit. It's actually a decent little, yeah. What you're looking at there, that red building, that's our medical building. So obviously, like I said earlier, you know, safety is always the #1 priority. That has, you know, ALS, advanced life-saving capability there to sustain any type of traumatic wound specific to gunshots or the type of training we do out here. The response time from the medical community outside, life flight's actually right up the road. We can have a bird here within 5 minutes. And they have a mobile platform out here. Ambulances out here in about 15. Coming in here, this is the team house. So this is back to recreational capabilities on site. Again, making it full spectrum where guys don't have to leave, go out in town. You guys will see when we go in here, it's full bar and a bunch of cool stuff. So at the end of the day, when they're done training, so long as, you know, the regulations, the company has its standard operating procedure specific to alcohol consumption. Like they are not allowed to have any type of alcohol prior to a minimum of 8 hours prior to any type of live fire training. And we will not let guys train if we witness or smell booze or any of that type of stuff on them. But so long as the unit's leadership, you know, the team leader, the platoon leader, whatever the case may be, approves the guys to hang out at night and do their thing, this is actually a reduction in liability for them to have this on site, because if they are going to give them free time at the end of the night after training all day, if this wasn't on site, they have to go out in town. And if they go out in town, at this point, you can tell that.
We go to get some.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of guys, you know, from our community kind of stand out a little bit compared to the standard population.
No shit.
So when they go to these bars and stuff, I mean, you guys, I mean, I grew up in Southern Missouri. I mean, as long as a guy, as long as a guy's not afraid of getting an ass whooping, he's got nothing to lose, right? So guys will get a little liquid courage in and be like, well, fuck, I'm going to fight a Navy SEAL. And what? I mean, everybody expects me to lose. So if I lose, at least I fought him.
Right.
I mean, if I win, I'm the motherfucking king of the mountain, right? So guys deal with that shit. I mean, you guys deal with that shit, I'm sure. You guys.
It's ridiculous.
It's
The
ridiculous.
thought process of that is ridiculous.
really
But that's
weird.
how it is, and you know that's how it is. It's
Especially out
Let
here.
me run around the pool table twice, and when you're done, when you're breathing hard, then I'm coming to you.
yeah, it's stupid, but again, your guys' world. It's you understand what I'm talking about. So it's a reality. So this is a huge benefit for leadership whenever they come out to train, because keeping the morale up of a team once they've been here for 5, 6, 7 days, working 12, 14-hour days, just running and gunning. They're tired, they're beat down. If they don't give them any time off to decompress, by the end of 3, 4 day, dudes are like, fuck this, man, this sucks, and blah, blah, blah. So decompression is a super important thing specific to morale. So having this on site allows them to do that decompression without having the liability of being in town and particularly getting in a conflict that could involve law enforcement and create an incident that could potentially be a national incident. Because again, if a guy ends up stabbed or ends up beating a guy really bad or potentially killing a guy on accident, like that stuff is going to be on Fox 2 News, telling the world about it.
Nice hangout.
Oh, this is comfy.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the team room. So pretty much one of the first things that teams, specifically in special operations teams, try to establish when they get to a base of operations overseas is some sort of gathering area for guys to hang out and then be boys together. You know?
That's smart. Yeah.
So that's hence the name Team House. And it usually involves something where you got a bunch of cool pictures and stuff from stuff you've done and patches and walls. And, you know, in the event the booze are allowed in the area, you got a bar and stuff like that. So this is just basically a replica of what most teams try to build anywhere that they're at. You know, and any of your SF or your special forces or SOCOM specific units, there's a team room somewhere in the vicinity of where they're based out of that they've established for them. So we've just built that here. Pool table, poker table, some video games, full bar. You know, they got kegs and full suites of booze and all that stuff. So they come in here and they can decompress at the end of the night, do their thing. Additionally, units that come in, they always like to leave their mark. So they'll leave a patch or they'll you look at the paddles there on the wall. That's some of the stuff that units have built for us as a thank you for the training. And there's lots of stuff that we don't have room for on the walls that is piled up in the back, but we'll expand this thing, make it bigger, but that's what you're looking at here. Yeah. So if you look around, you got insignia from all of your special operations units. You got your MARSOC Raiders, your special forces units, your pararescue units, your force recon units, your SEAL teams, your SWAT teams, your U.S. Marshals, all the guys that come out here and train. Like I said, the majority of them have left something here to leave their mark on the facility. And it just, again, it adds to the climate of this room as a whole. Lots of stories told in here, man. I mean, if these walls could talk, you'd know about. So aside from we'd have to take vehicles over the other side. And you guys, I'm sure they're going to drive you over to show the other side earlier, but on the other side of the road, we have the 700-meter known distance sniper range. You guys will get a chance to see that before you leave today. And then right below at the memorial, the flag that I pointed out to you guys earlier with memorials, if you were to draw a straight line down to the valley, we have a 2,000-meter unknown distance sniper range with a multi-story platform that can host up to 20 shooters for shooting out a mile plus. Yeah, 700 meters is a good shot, but it's a pretty standard. I mean, that sounds like a long distance for guys that ain't in that world, but for a sniper, I mean, you think a basic Marine is learning how to shoot 500 meters with just open sights. So when you're on a scoped high caliber, precision rifle, pushing out to 700 is not really a very difficult thing. When you start pushing past that distance is when it really starts to get difficult, which is why we have the 2K range up top where you're pushing a mile plus on some of those things. And you're shooting 50 cals.
Yeah, small missiles.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so that's where winning. And you even have things that go into effect called Coriolis effect, where you're actually taking into consideration the spinning of the earth while the round is flying, because the time it takes for a round to go from your barrel to impact something at that distance, the actual slow turn of the earth.
Jesus.
How long is he? How long does that take to go a mile?
What is the
Feet per second?
Yeah.
Lots.
Yeah, so I mean the sound to impact is usually 1 to 2 seconds. So I mean you go boom, ping.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's gone. But
yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's super impressive when you're pushing. Like your guys that are hitting those distances know what they're doing. It's good. Like I said, when you're starting to have to when you're taking shots that are long enough, so you have to take into consideration the Coriolis effect. Those guys are good.
Yeah, that's when you.
That's scary stuff.
Your answer is 17 will shoot 2,700 feet per second.
Yeah.
How many guys you got here that hit a mile target and are nailing a mile?
A handful of our guys here. So our sniper cadre here, most of them are hitting that mile mark with the right platform. A standard 308 caliber M40. You can pop 1,000 meters. You start pushing past that, you're hurting.
That's the most valuable sniper rifle in the game right there, the 308.
Yep, you're starting to push its capabilities. You can stretch it out a little further than that. With the right barrel, right scope, right shooter, all that good stuff. But once you start pushing past that 1,300 meter mark, you're stepping into your 50 cals and your 6.5 Creedmoors and stuff like that.
Damn.
Are we going to see someone do that today? Can we see someone shoot a mile?
You guys are going to be pushing it just to get the stuff they already had planned.
Right?
Yeah. No, not at all. No, I enjoy answering. And with that, I mean, while we're in here, because this is our last stop for the walkthrough, any additional questions you guys got for me regarding the company or anything?
You got a good thing going, man.
Yeah.
Really cool thing going.
That
was awesome.
Man,
Thank
dude.
you.
Stoked to have you guys out here. Yeah.
Appreciate you, dude.
Yeah,
Seriously.
appreciate you guys. Yeah, appreciate you guys. Yeah.
Whoa! Yeah! Whoa! Yes!
Sometimes a little bit further back, depending on how much time you have to get in the doorway.
because as soon as that goes off, you give it basically like a second to breathe. We call it to breathe, and then you just follow the doorway in.
That's cool.
Strand, 50 grain, deck cord. Yeah. We usually use double strands when we're doing it for real because you don't want a failure. And then this is just shock tube, so it's instant shock tube.
Enough to blow a metal door down also?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on if you want to cut the door or fold it in, you can add water charge to it, and you can fold in the doors and stuff. So yeah, with an assistant breacher pulling security, they strip that down really quick. It's
Like
double-sided
seconds?
tape. Oh yeah, seconds.
Yeah.
You can buy it at Buckeye's Bike.
And then roll out, the team's stacked up, ready to go. It's literally like you could have that done in 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's cool.
Damn, dude.
Pull that,
Don't
let
really
it go.
feel it.
It hits the shotgun primer, which this is full of explosive as well. So this travels through the wire.
goes all the way
it's
through the
instant.
top.
Yep. It's instant. Just,
There's rounds everywhere.
That's a
we'll stand by that car back there. I'm going to tell you to fire. So with full auto, you want to lean into it a little more because it's going to ride up it, especially right-handed shooters. It's going to ride up and to the right. Lefty kind of does the opposite. When I tell you to click the safety, you're just going to click once. That's semi, and you're going to click it once more. That's full auto. We'll have a mag already loaded up, and then let it eat. Okay.
Let it eat! Woo!
Wait, don't we any lefties though?
Just going, I'm swinging my elbow straight back, not out to the side, straight back and punching down onto my pistol, right? Making sure that my finger is flagged away from the pistol. This really comes into play if you guys are carrying it concealed in your appendix. So the number one is I just break the retention, still looking down, raise. Two, I raise it up into basically my armpit, right? My weapon is face down range. This is also good if you're in a close contact kind of fight, like elevator or in your car, and you can engage through the hips, right? Number three, I come off center mat. The front sight tip is just blurry under my vision. It should be in line somewhat with my nose. And you know if you're in a good position if you can place a fist between the pistol and your hand for your face, right? From there, I get my grip out, and we'll work with your grip depending on what's going on with your hands. All right, then I punch it straight from my face to the target, and I line my whatever dominant eye you are with the rear and the front sight tip.
Crisscross. You and Scotty are playing swords.
Sam's going to shoot two on his, and you put two on Tony. Okay.